What is it?
Don't you play any of that heavy metal music tonight, Mr. Sovryn. I don't know what happened to you, but you used to be such a good conservative boy.
Whatever you say, missus, you should mind your own goddamn business.
What did you call me, young man?
Oh, nothing. Good night. Tell me what to listen to. Try this.
Come on!
Bringing his hard-hitting attitude and journalism to hard rock and heavy metal. Get ready to get rocked. Hard. And fast. By the podcast champion, the man of tomorrow, Dragonaut One Brian Sovryn, on the Hard and Fast podcast. And now, here's Brian.
Yow! The man in triple black is here for you, baby. The man in triple black attack. Boy, I love that. Almost reminds me of Striper. I'm a big fan of Striper. I'm just going to let that out right now. Like, I will have Michael Sweet on this show. No problem. I am a huge, huge fan. And look, I'm an atheist. Okay? I mean, hail Satan, baby. Like, really. But, well, anyway. We'll see if we can ever get him on. I think Michael Sweet's just, I mean, wow, what a musician. Tremendous. Anyway. We have some more re-release content in this episode of the Hard and Fast podcast. Welcome, Dragonaut One here is ready for you and the rest of you Dragonauts out there. And the re-release episode within this was originally patron content only. It was behind a paywall for the other podcasts that I do, Sovereign Tech, or one of the other podcasts I do. I forget how many I do now. I feel like Mike Portnoy, who has like 1 million bands. I feel like I have 1 million podcasts, but I'm not complaining. I love doing it. But anyway, the re-release content is fairly fresh. It was from the end of 2018, and it is me covering just a ton of albums that came out in, well, I guess in the business world, what you would call Q4 of 2018. I mean, it seemed like end of October and into November, like there was this, in fact, it was one particular, like the third week of October, just this onslaught, this avalanche of hard rock and heavy metal albums from a lot of tried and true bands and some newer stuff. I mean, we just got hammered. I'm still talking about, because I do a review of albums. I give like an album of the week on the Zomi One Underground Wednesday Q&A. I'm still covering albums that came out from that month alone in 2018, now this far into 2019. It's crazy. And I knew there would be that many albums. And I mean, I only do the Q&A once a week. And that's why I had to do an episode where I just I knocked out a shit ton of them. And so it was called You Need Metal Supplemental. Now, the original You Need Metal trilogy should have come out, I know it's come out by the time this episode comes out. And so you can listen to all of that to kind of get you up to snuff on what's happening in the latest in metal. But now this is a supplemental episode to that because, frankly, I mean, unless there's another avalanche like this at some point, I can't see the need to ever, I mean, since I do the Hard and Fast podcast and this show can come out as often as it needs to, be it once a month, once a week, hell, if it ends up becoming more, believe me, I am totally on board for that. I mean, you want me to talk music all day? You bet your ass I will. So, anyway, I can't picture like doing a You Need Metal 4 or anything like that. There's no real need. But this is a good hour's worth of content that you're going to get into. And again, it is You Need Metal Supplemental, and it will really catch you right up into 2019 with a lot of the latest, what I consider the latest and greatest in hard rock and heavy metal. Now, before we get into that, I do, and you hear from a sponsor, I do want to, of course, give you something original, give you something new to talk about. And this was a very interesting story. Of course, we talked about in a recent Hard and Fast podcast. You know, I'm a huge fan of Judas Priest. Those guys are still to this day, especially when you listen to something that came out last year in 2018, that being Judas Priest's Firepower. That album was, talk about a fucking onslaught. An onslaught of metal. But a band still carrying the metal flag to this day. And recently, Ian Hill, who, believe it or not, is he's the bassist from from Judas Priest, and really he's the only original member left in the band. Now, what do I mean by that? Yes, Rob Halford's still there, and so on. Most people don't realize that, like, Rob Halford wasn't in, the band started in 69. Halford didn't join until, like, 73, I think. And then I think Glenn Tipton, actually, who is, is well known for the band as, as Rob Halford was. KK's not there anymore. But Glenn Tipton, he started, I think, in, like, 74. So technically, the only original member of the band since 69 is the bassist, Ian Hill, who, is maybe one of the more underrated bassists in heavy metal. His name doesn't come up very quickly when you think of other bassists, say, of course, Gene Simmons, say Nikki Sixx, and I mean, you could really start going down the list. Billy Sheehan's probably one of the most famous of all time, but Ian Hill is, rock solid. And ironically, or coincidentally, Ian Hill was recently on the Rob Rush radio show, and he got asked a question that comes up a lot, that frankly I have been hearing since I was a teenager. And ironically, when I was a teenager, that's when, like, the grunge scene, and that whole Seattle scene, and not the good Seattle scene like Queensryche, but the Seattle scene, your Nirvanas and all this other horse shit was really coming to prominence. So, like, rock was really experiencing a resurgence, but even then, you had people basically coming out and saying, don't you realize rock is dead? Like, it's over. I've heard this over and over again for, probably the past 20 years. And I know that actually that kind of statement was being said even before then. Speaking of Gene Simmons, I've seen interviews of Gene Simmons where he was being told in the 80s, rock's dead. Like this, it's almost like Bitcoin, where it seems like every day somebody's claiming Bitcoin is dead. It seems like every day somebody's saying rock is dead. And I want to, kind of give my take on it, but why don't we speak from someone who's certainly been in the scene for decades to whether or not he'd actually know. And I think he had some brilliant things to say. So I'm actually reading a bit of a transcript from blabbermouth.net, great resource for your heavy metal news, certainly. And I mean, one of the top resources today, really, on the internet. But anyway, let's read it here, and let's see. Judas Priest bassist Ian Hill was recently interviewed by Rob Rush Radio. You can now listen to the chat below. Anyway, asked for his opinion on the notion that rock is dead. Hill said, I don't think it will ever be dead. The thing is, what are you going to replace it with? It's been there since the 50s, rock and roll. I mean, it's all coming from then, basically. And like I say, if you're going to kill it off, there's going to have to be another alternative from your manufactured pop stuff that you've been getting all along. There's always been something else. It's either been blues, or it's been jazz, or now it's heavy rock or heavy metal. There's always been something there, and I definitely haven't heard anything that could possibly replace heavy metal at the moment. But it will never die. There's always people there who like different things, and heavy metal certainly is different to run-of-the-mill popular music you get in general. There's more to the interview where Ian Hill kind of defends Greta Van Fleet, which is one of the newer rock bands out there. I listened to it. It's interesting. I get it. They're young, and so, I'm guessing the record companies think that they can get... well, what some would argue is the most important demographic you can get in the music industry, which is your teenage gals. I'm not going to say that that's the most important demographic. I understand the argument, but whatever. I mean, there are great new rock bands out there. You're going to hear about a ton of them in the re-release content for this episode, which is the You Need Metal Supplemental. And I mean, and of course there's bands I've talked about recently. I don't know if I actually covered them on a review, but like Rival Sons, fucking amazing rock band. There's a lot of great metal acts out there, and they're not death metal acts either. Like, they're genuine heavy metal acts that are going on. I mean, fuck. How the hell do you beat Beast in Black? There's nothing out there that beats Beast in Black. I mean, they're only 2 albums deep, so I don't want to come out and say they're my favorite band of all time, but fuck, if they keep this up, they're so fucking good. So, I mean, it's madness to say that, and I haven't heard, I mean, I already said it, on Sovereign Tech, on my other show, I do like a year in review, where I do my best ofs for for a certain year. And I've already pretty much said that for 2019, Beast in Black's From Hell with Love is going to be album of the year. And I cannot imagine anything topping that. That album is a masterpiece. And it beats their self-titled album from 2017, which that was fucking awesome in its own right. But From Hell with Love, I think that's going to go down as one of the greatest rock albums in, I wouldn't be shocked if it was in history, for fuck's sake. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it really kind of kills me, actually, that it seems like the main people in the conversation who are keeping like rock and metal alive are Rival Sons, which, I mean, they deserve it. They're great. But Rival Sons, The Struts, which, okay, and Greta Van Fleet. And like you get no conversation around these other bands like Beast in Black or even Battle Beast for that matter, or some of these other ones. I'm baffled that they're not included. I mean, you get like Santa Cruz, who I think, no, you probably heard about Santa Cruz in a recent You Need Metal re-release. But, a band like that, I mean, these people should be part of the conversation, and they're fucking not. So anyway, with all those examples, though, it's very obvious that, no, rock is not dead because some of its best shit is still coming out to this day. And it's stuff that's unique. It's not, one of the arguments getting levied against Greta Van Fleet is that they're copying Led Zeppelin. I'm not going to get into that conversation. I have no need to, okay? But fuck, there's stuff where you can't argue that it sounds like anything else. It's so new, it's so fresh, it's so hot. I don't get it. Anyway, very clearly, my answer is that rock is not dead. I agree very much with what Ian Hill is saying here in this interview, in that, yeah, you need something. It's not, in fact, I'll go further. It's not just that you need an alternative. It's that you are always going to have people in this world, okay, who... And I don't want to, I could get into a big conversation around this. We could get really scientific about it. We could go all kinds of avenues, but I'm just going to keep it pretty simple. You always have your rebels. You have your rebels in life. They're, they're from in every country, in every, all around the world, from all walks of life. You're always going to have your rebels, regardless of status, culture, you name it. You're going to have your rebels. And those rebels are going to look for some kind of representation in wherever they happen to be. And music is one of those things. I mean, it's one of our original, well, I would argue that poetry is which, of course, music, you could argue music sprung out of poetry. But poetry / music is one of the first forms of art and one of the first modes of communication. In fact, I dare say we almost started talking, after humanity, hundreds of thousands of years ago, when we breached the Broca Divide, right, and we were able to actually use something like language. Poetry was kind of the first thing. I would argue music is one of the first things. I mean, it's a very primal thing within us, music. It's a big deal. And to find that rebellious sound, it's always going to have to be there. And I think that there are, there's a lot of research being done around how we listen to music, what music does to us, and so on, how it affects people, say, that maybe are more empathic. These are things I've talked about actually over the years on Sovereign Tech. Now I can talk about them on my own music show, that being the Hard and Fast podcast here. But these things strike a chord in us, and we need it. We need it badly. And I think if you are, you recognize when you're a rebel in society, you might still enjoy some of the pop. I can enjoy, look, I like Britney Spears. No, really, I fucking do. I can dig some of Katy Perry shit. I'm not kidding. Okay. But when it's manufactured, and when it's something coming from, for lack of a better phrase, again, I'm an atheist, but for lack of a better phrase, coming from someone's soul. I'm reminded of the song by Bon Jovi, Last Man Standing, where the lyric is, his songs were more than music, they were pictures from his soul. And yeah, I think you latch onto that, and then when those pictures from another person's soul, as it were, are rebellious, you hold on. And you really identify with it. And that's why I think heavy metal, is really, it's a subculture. It's not just music. I mean, there's you go to a metal show, I do the same thing. I have, I have wrist gauntlets I get on. I mean, I do the whole thing. People get in their best metal gear. It's like they're going to church. I mean, and to say nothing of how metal shows are, reminiscent of perhaps, ancient Mithraic celebrations in Rome. That, again, that's a whole other conversation that maybe we'll get into in the Hard and Fast podcast at some point. Maybe I can get some experts on who can even speak better to that than I can. But regardless, yeah, you have like Ian Hill is saying, there has to be an alternative. And not just an alternative, but it has to be an alternative that appeals to the rebels within civilization, within, humanity. And, I know there's people who want to talk about, I mean, there are other subgenres of music out there. There's ska, there's, I don't know, EDM, that gets into funny territory. But I mean, they're out there, there's subgenres, there's swing music, there's jazz, there's all these different things. Jazz might be a little more like it, but except for, I really think like jazz and the blues. And of course I know what the difference is, but it can be tough to for some people to differentiate there. Just like, hard rock and heavy metal. I don't think there's that much of a differentiation. Electric guitar is electric guitar and a sax is a sax, but anyway, I mean, the thing is that most other genre alternatives, let's say, to the pop music that you're getting force-fed, don't have a subculture with them. And they really don't. You could say they do, okay? I mean, sure, some, I don't know, I guess, there's more like the hippie kind of music festival stuff, which that has a subculture, but I could get into a big conversation around that, because I have some problems with that, where I think that there's a lot more to that, and also there's issues of accessibility even with the rebels within society. That runs into a lot of issues. That gets very complex. But as far as something where there is this ready, visually distinct subculture that you can jump on board, it's the music, sure, but then there's even more, there's even like a wardrobe, there's a way of talking, there's an attitude, there's all this different stuff, right? Heavy metal's the thing, rock and roll's the thing that has that. And also, and this is another, I think, very important part of it, is that a lot of heavy metal, a lot of rock and roll is about sex. Why did rap take off so much? Gene Simmons has talked about this. Rap took off because it was the only kind of music out there that was showing the good life, that was, showing money getting thrown all over the place and women everywhere. And I'm not saying that that's what music needs to do, but I'm just saying, I get the argument that that's why people get attracted to that, because, metal and rock used to, at least some of it, or a good chunk of it, used to at least have those elements in it. Okay. I mean, just go watch a Warrant video or a Poison video to see that. But then that fell away and everything turned into a depression fest. I mean, if anything was going to make rock dead, it's the fucking depression fest that so much of hard rock, or so much of rock and heavy metal seems to be about, which is a shame. But, there are plenty of bands out there that are not part of the depression fest. I mean, you've been hearing about them throughout the You Need Metal series that I've re-released over the past few episodes. You'll hear more of them later on in this episode. So no, rock is not dead. Rock is still totally necessary. It's totally viable. It needs to continue for the very reason that the rebels in society, okay, the rebels amongst humanity, need something to inspire them and to self-identify with and to be encouraged by. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know what the fuck the rebels do. And that's a shame. Humanity's nothing without its rebels. It needs them all the time, for all time. So anyway, interesting points for Ian Hill to bring up. I agree. There is no real, outside of metal and hard rock, there is no real alternative that has as much foundation and history as that does, in comparison to, to the pop music out there. So no, heavy metal, hard rock, it's not going anywhere. I mean, no way. And if the alternative comes up, then great. There's another music scene for people to jump on board with and get excited about. But because it doesn't have the same history, like Ian Hill said, rock and roll's been around since the 50s, because it doesn't have that, because, I mean, I don't think it could ever really take it over. And again, I don't ever think that rock could really die. So anyway, That's it for your custom opening here. Just an interesting conversation to have around the importance. And this also, points at, in my opinion, the importance of talking about heavy metal, of highlighting heavy metal and hard rock, because I think it does do something special, for the species, frankly. And you could say that that's crazy, but I think some of the research is coming in that, no, that's not that crazy. And I think you can also see it, and look, it's not like everybody that listens to this stuff is somehow brilliant or something like that. In fact, most people would think quite the opposite. But that's something where research has come in that it's amazing the amount of really creative, and I think IQ's bullshit, but, shall we say intelligent people, just for the sake of the argument, they get really excited about heavy metal. And it's because in many ways it's the modern day Mozart. So yeah, just like Mozart never died, heavy metal, hard rock, never dying. So we'll leave it at that. Anyway, if you want to get a taste of some of the recent amazing albums that have come out within this genre, you are in for a treat over the next hour, because I am going to lay on you so many fucking albums, re-releases of classic albums as well that came out throughout 2018. You're just in for a treat. And if you want to hear more, of course, make sure that you become a member of the Zomia One Underground. Just go to ZomiaOne.com. You're going to see a sidebar on the left. There's a hamburger menu, and you can just look at the sidebar, and it'll give you the option to sign up for the Zomia One Underground, and you get access to thousands of hours of exclusive content, as well as, new content that comes out every single week, sometimes every single day. Trust me, you're going to get your money's worth no matter what pledge level you sign up for. So anyway, I'll let the music ride this one out at the end. So Dragonaut One signing off. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Woo!
Hey, when you're going to your next rock show and need a hotel, don't forget to use booking.hardandfastpodcast.com. Booking.com gets you the best prices all around the world, no matter where your next rock show is, and is loaded with reviews so that you get the best rates and the best hotel rooms, because, you never know who or how many people might be going back to your hotel room later that night, baby. And if you use the URL booking.hardandfastpodcast.com, you'll get a $25 cash reward. Can you beat that? Again, use booking.hardandfastpodcast.com to get $25 and the hottest rooms at the hottest prices. Booking.hardandfastpodcast.com. And don't forget to put up the do not disturb sign, baby. All right, let's get back to the show. Woo! Woo, the Rated R radio star is here for you. The Golden Stallion, of course. Oops, just hit the mic stand, or the mic arm. Well, a little bonus episode for you. Nothing more, just a bonus episode. If you're not, one of the major music fans that regularly listens to Sovereign Tech, well, this one isn't necessarily for you. But, with me, as a lot of people tell me, you never really know. Like, I could be talking about, what's the line from Superman the movie where Lex Luthor says, some people can look at the ingredients of the wrapper on the wrapper of chewing gum and discover the mysteries of the universe or something. I'm not saying I could do that. I'm saying that I think some people get, just never know where I'm going to go no matter what I'm talking about. I could be talking about just some simple metal album, and then suddenly they hear something that is, I don't know, to them, a secret of the universe, I guess. So anyway, this is purely bonus, but I want to get it out there partly because, and I actually hinted that I would be doing this in a Wednesday Q&A recently, because I said that just in the past month, just in October, in fact, just on the day, October 19th, just on that Friday, holy hell, just on that day, there were so many albums that got released, music albums that got released, that I was beyond excited for. I mean, it's really, really crazy. And in the interest of the ability to really talk about, first off, to cover all of those albums, because I could be talking about these albums. I mean, are there 50 some odd, 52 albums, right? 52 weeks in a year. Are there 52 albums that I could be discussing? I mean, not that many, but damn, it's not far off, So, especially with everything that's come out in 2018. 2018 has really been a banner year for entertainment, in my opinion. Not so much movies, perhaps, but with just about everything else. It's been pretty amazing what's been coming out in the other mediums and so on. So But that said, I mean, in 2018, just all of the metal albums that were hard metal and hard rock, some people want me to delineate. But anyway, just that has been crazy. I mean, it's really like just almost countless. And actually a lot of, or some music that I've discovered as I've been collecting, the 2018, various metal albums from various acts, that have come out. Here's the thing. And I, like I said this on a recent Wednesday Q&A, that I was going to have to do an episode where I covered just like effectively a ton of albums of the week and get them knocked out, get them out of the way so that they're out there, because I'm the only person that'll fucking talk about them for some reason. I mean, I can't be the only one because these albums do sell somewhat. I don't know, maybe Eddie Trunk, Eddie Trunk does have the sack to do it, but, maybe Eddie Trunk has the sack to talk about some of these albums. I mean, he does pretty much almost a daily show, that's all about hard rock and heavy metal. But, with that said, like, if I'm going to be able to talk about even just new releases, like newer releases that had come out the previous week, or if I'm going to be able to even talk about other genres of music, I know when a lot of you like me to talk about synthwave and other various genres of music. The only way I'm going to be able to do that and still talk about every fucking album that I want to talk about that has come out, okay, and that I want to make you aware of, the only way that's going to happen is if I do some kind of supplemental Patreon episode, pure bonus, where I cover all of those albums. It's the only way it's going to happen. So with that in mind, I figured the best thing to do also is, because I had years ago, and I actually did an update in 2018 for this. I think I did either a part 3. Yeah, I guess it was a part 3. I did a series called You Need Metal, and there's part 1, part 2, and part 3. You can find all of them in the Patreon feed. Part 1 and part 2 originally came out years ago on the Sovereign Tech Prime feed, back when I used to do Sovereign Tech specials. And so to kind of fit in with that, I'm not going to do You Need Metal part 4, but let's call it You Need Metal Supplemental. And so all the albums I'm going to cover here are metal or hard rock. Just to get these all out of the way, because again, there's so fucking many. Like one I want to do for album of the week, just the other day, I don't even know if it officially came out yet, but you can certainly find it on the torrent sites. The box set, the big, 11, 12, 13 disc box set of Injustice for All by Metallica, came out, which we were all waiting for that one, right? Because we're all wondering, okay, they've been remastering all their classic albums. Are they going to add in bass on the completely seemingly baseless, not B-A-S-E, but B-A-S-S, the baseless, a classic album, Injustice for All? I mean, it not having bass doesn't hurt, just how badass that fucking album is. Well, I'm going to save that for an actual album of the week. I'm not going to get into that on this episode, because honestly, I want to give it a full review, and I need to listen to all the live shows and all the demo discs that come with it. Like I said, it's like an 11 disc set. I mean, it's stupid, stupidly huge. So, but only a band like Metallica could do that, where every album that they re-release, can be an 11 disc set. Admittedly, I can't wait for, and I know I'm weird in this, I am a much bigger fan of later Metallica than I am earlier Metallica. Now, it's kind of like how I am with Kiss, right? Like, I like Kiss with makeup and without. I like them without makeup a whole hell of a lot more. But then at the same time, it, like, within the realm of Kiss, it doesn't really matter, because their makeup, when they have makeup on, is still eons better than most anything that anybody else does. Same with Metallica. Okay, I like their, when they cut their hair, significantly better. Once they got into Load and Reload and even Saint Anger, I love Saint Anger. Death Magnetic, and going on from there. Even when they, like, I like that material a lot better than I like, their earlier stuff, Ride the Lightning and, Kill 'Em All and so on. But that said, Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All and Master of Puppets, and Justice for All are eons better than most of what anybody else puts out there. So it's kind of relative. You get my point? Is that, sure, I can say that I like this, I like one phase of the band significantly better than the other, but still those other albums are infinitely better than most of what anybody else bothers to put out. So it's not really an insult. It's still saying it's some of the greatest music ever made, right? But anyway, all of this is to say is that the only way I'm going to be able to talk about all these albums is if I do a little episode, and I want to try and keep this pretty short, okay? I really, really do, because this is total bonus, okay? And it's supplemental, and I just want to be able to get all these out there. That way there's, we can continue with albums of the week, as I normally would, but also give justice to, the incredible work that has come out even in just the past month, or, maybe even some stuff that maybe I didn't get to cover over even recent years, but also really throughout 2018, because there have been some fucking doozies, let me tell you, and I mean some fucking doozies. So they are phenomenal. So heavy metal, as you know, I've said this many times, that is that if soundtracks, as in scores, instrumental, John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith, Basil Polderi, so on, okay, if that was a actual genre of music, that would be my favorite genre of music. Aside from that, okay, now I listen to all kinds of music. Hell, I listen to Britney Spears like there's no tomorrow. You have no idea, okay? I mean, I really fucking do. Femme Fatale, best album. But, besides that, besides those soundtracks, my favorite type of music, and certainly what I identify, I guess, most openly with, is being a metalhead. I listen to metal and hard rock all the time. Particularly, I'll tell you, when I am working out, when I'm feeling the caress of steel, as it were, and that's the way that I like to think about it. That, the iron and I have the weights, we have a very real symbiotic relationship, I think. And, the push and pull, when I'm making that happen, I like to have some heavy metal going. And, there's actually, I think it was out of Harvard, there is research, I don't want to say scientific proof, but there is research that, suggests that actually listening to music that pumps you up, gets you excited and so on. And certainly, some heavy metal, especially with some good thrashing of the guitar, can actually get you that final rep, or those final few reps, or that last set, or get you going that last 5 minutes of cardio. It's very interesting. I definitely recommend reading up on it. If I think of it, I'll put it in the show notes, but I might not be able to do that. But yeah, working out, heavy metal, heavy metal, when you're lifting heavy metal, it just makes sense. and it works really, really fucking well. A great question that I remember getting asked was, what's my go-to for when I'm working out? What's my go-to for lifting? What band would I put on? I'll tell you, Metallica is a hell of a pick. Speaking of Metallica, I got to go though with, I'll give you two. Okay. Motorhead, as far as even though Motorhead doesn't want to consider itself, and Lemmy, rest in peace. Oy. How dare I say the name of God wrong? Lemmy, rest in peace. But Motorhead, even though they want to consider themselves, they call themselves a blues band. Okay. Well, then, Satan bless the blues, baby. Motorhead is an easy pick for me. But I'll tell you, Stan Bush, I mean, I don't even know if you can call that hard rock. I would call that hard rock, but Stan Bush is a great pick as far as, when it comes to something that's either hard rock or metal, for lifting. And anything by him, even his early days when it was Stan Bush in the Barrage, I would totally, do that, which he had an album, I think, come out in 2018, didn't he? Or was that last year when he had Changed the World come out? Fucking A. Oh man, brilliant shit. So anyway, yeah, I'd probably go with Motorhead. There's no Motorhead on this list, by the way. But there's, and some stuff that would be on this list we already covered in Albums of the Week. Like we covered the new Amaranthe album, which is Helix. Amaranthe is definitely an easy go-to for me if I just want to get a quick fix. The new Aeons album, what was that, Last Stand or whatever? That's just fucking brilliant. That was Last Stand is their first album. Life is Not Beautiful. That was the new one that they came out with. There's a new, perhaps the most mind-blowing piece of music to come out of 2018 is a new Steve Perry album. And damn it, is it good? And it is. It's great. 2018, again, amazing year. But yeah, as far as there's some albums that I won't cover here because I've already covered them for Albums of the Week. This is just to clear out the clutter, even though each one of these albums is great. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother really talking about them. But another time where I really like my heavy metal is when I'm driving. And, I got to tell you, so I recently just got, this is a little inside baseball. I recently just got a car. So I haven't had a car in years. Been more than happy, rolling around with Stephanie, in her vehicle. But I just recently got a car, and actually thanks to Sovereign Tech's own Pixel, to Paige Peterson, she got me the hookup, and I am driving around in a very, very nice 2007 Jeep Grand Cherokee, and what a time that is. And I like to certainly put on the metal when I'm driving, and it's triple black too. Like Paige totally knew. She keeps saying it to me. She's like, Brian, this is your car. Like you have to have this, and everything. The wheels are, the rims are black and everything. The whole thing, like everything's just black. It's black as night, and it looks awesome. So anyway, yeah, thanks of course to Paige for that, and and so on. So for helping me out, give me the hookup on that. Yeah. So all right. Let's get into the metal. Like I said, when you're driving, some of this is really, really great for driving. But let's start breaking it down. And I'm going to start off with something that didn't actually come out in 2018, but I found out about it while I was going through music for 2018. So here's an interesting thing to do. Okay. Granted, I don't always buy my music. Just putting that out there. I mean, I don't know who makes the kind of money that could buy all this metal, but some I will. Like I said, Steve Perry, I bought it, because I want Steve Perry to know. I want the market signal out there. But honestly, a lot of these albums will never be a big deal outside of either Canada, and I mean that, Canada, Japan, or Europe in general. In America, American sales, they barely even count them, if they'll even sell some of these albums in America. In fact, I mentioned it, I think, on this past Wednesday Q&A, that like Dragon Force, hell, I have my Dragon Force wristband on right now. I have a Dragon Force scarf. I'm not kidding. I have a Dragon Force scarf. I've had it for years. I love this band. They are the band actually that I go to when I want to talk about torrents. But anyway, they came out with an album. They did a re-release back in April of this year of The Power Within, and they call it Repowered Within. Never released in America, not officially anyway. Never released. So what do you do about that? I mean, obviously you torrent it, but again, the point being is that a lot of these bands, they don't count on American sales. So, I don't always feel so bad about it because they often don't even offer their albums here. Great. Or whatever, or the fucking whole thing with Japanese editions and them getting bonus tracks. That's a whole other thing, a whole other story I've talked about in countless episodes in the past. So we're not going to get into that here. But anyway, I wanted to get, for the first album that I want to bring up, this is from 2014. And I just found out about it, and I am so pissed off that I just found out about it because we're going into 2019, and this band hasn't released another album. They had the one. It's like they're a one and done, and I am really sad about that because I would have bought their album back in 2014 to send them the market signal and let them know, holy shit, you're doing you're delivering the goods here. This is a brilliant, brilliant little album, and the band is Loud Lion. Okay, Loud Lion, which that's a great band name because this is very much a lot of what I'm going to talk about fits into the melodic rock or what some people want to call hair metal and so on. But of course, it's modern. 2014, is that not modern? But anyway, Loud Lion. So they had an album in 2014. It was called Die Tough. And it's their only album as far as I can tell. And what a shame because this band is, the album Die Tough is probably the best Def Leppard album that Def Leppard never made. That's the only way I can describe it. I mean, this guy, and that's the other hard part too, is like even trying to find information on like these band members and everything. I mean, that's the nature of, the internet now, right? Is like anybody can, and computers in general, is that, the tools to make a lot of this content, to be a creative, has really been democratized, right? I mean, look at what I'm able to make a podcast with. So it's pretty, it's amazing. But yeah, you don't know anything about any of these singers or any of the band members. I mean, you really got to dig deep, and I don't necessarily always have time for that. I'd love to know more about this band. I wish they would do more music. It's a good bet they're never going to, but fucking A, the lead singer sounds like Joe Elliott. I mean, he sounds just like Joe Elliott. It's creepy. And no doubt about it, the opening song is Love Will Break Your Heart. This album feels like its tongue is well in cheek. Okay, now it's not Steel Panther, like where Steel Panther is clearly a almost comedic act, right? You know, I mean, they're making a mockery, even though it's kind of respectful. They're making a mockery of, you know, that 80s style of metal. Loud Lion is not at that level, but they seem self-aware of kind of like a great action movie when it knows that it's being kind of ridiculous with its action. That's how I feel about Loud Lion with their album Die Tough. I mean, even like the lyrics are a little ridiculous, like Love Will Break Your Heart and so on. Like the songs don't seem to be taking themselves too seriously. The second track is Lion's Dead, or I'm sorry, not Lion's Dead, Lion's Den. Third track is Lion Eyes, which would have been an awesome, if they did a sequel album, you know, if they sound so much like Def Leppard, so many Def Leppard albums end with, or, you know, the names of the albums end with IZE, right? Adrenalize and so on. It would have been fantastic if if they had one called Lion Eyes. But, well, they don't, not a lot of the men with the IZE, but it's kind of a thing. So anyway, yeah, so but then the third track is Lion Eyes, but it's lion as and then eyes, like, you know, your two eyes. And there's a bunch of other, Dawn of the Dead, Sunset Slip. The further you go down the album, the first 4 songs or so are fantastic. And they really, really, like, to the point, it's just approaching that place where you can tell or where maybe they are copying some of Def Leppard's cues, like actual notes, a little too closely. Like it sounds a little too much like a certain Def Leppard song or so on. They're just approaching that place where that's a thing. Okay. But that said, yeah, like I told you, this is the best Def Leppard album that Def Leppard never did. And not to say Def Leppard is lost a step. I mean, they had, 2 years ago, they had their self-titled album come out, you know, Def Leppard. And that was fantastic. I mean, that was a brilliant fucking album. But this Die Tough by Loud Lion, that's a Def Leppard album. I mean, again, tongue a bit in cheek, but it works. It really, really works. And I know I'm kind of cheating at the beginning here because I said I'm going to be talking about albums that recently got released, and this came out in 2014, but I got to talk about it. You know, if I don't talk about it now, I don't know whenever the fuck it's going to get talked about. So we're bringing it up, but yeah, give this baby a listen. Find it. It is totally, totally fucking worth it. This one I might not have found on torrent sites, but I'm going to give you actually a little something here. I'm going to give you a site you can check out that might help you out. Okay, and it's called getmetal.club. Just get metal, that's the URL, getmetal.club instead of .com, .club. And that might help you out with getting your hands on some of this great, some of this real hotness, quite frankly. So yeah, once again, Loud Lion, Die Tough, masterpiece. You know, like really, I was like grinning listening to it because it just felt right, you know? It's like, oh yeah, now that's the Def Leppard sound. And I'm a huge Def Leppard fan. I mean, I have been forever. I mean, like really forever. Like ever since Hysteria. I was a little too young for Pyromania, but I mean, I love Pyromania now. But like ever since Hysteria and so on, I mean, I've seen Def Leppard countless times. Even, you know, back when they were doing their Euphoria tour, which that's a great fucking album, Euphoria. Holy shit. Just awesome. Love Def Leppard. So, and if you like Def Leppard, believe me, you're going to love Loud Lion. I mean, you're going to fucking love them. So, all right, let's move on from there. This one is also not part of that October 19 set that seemed to like that day that will live in infamy that just blew us all away with the amount of albums that came out. This is one that I think came out back in April of this year. And it's by a new band. This is their first album called Vega, Vega. And, of course, all of this is in the show notes as well. But their album is called Only Human. And this is more of that really great, I mean, it's a great play off of what Loud Lion does. This is more of that melodic rock. And it gets into, it's that melodic rock just like Def Leppard. I mean, it doesn't sound like Def Leppard, but it's like that, you know, like Def Leppard where there's a bit of synth and some other stuff put in there like Mutt Lange would do as a producer. There every song on this, and there's a couple ballads in there, which is nice. I like that. Every song in this is, I mean, it's track for track. You know, Loud Lion, I couldn't say the same thing, but with Vega, Only Human, absolutely. Every song is totally listenable. Every song is, it's either good or it's great. And opens right up with a good time with a song called Let's Have Fun Tonight. And it just keeps going. Worth Dying For, Last Man Standing. And, you know, the ballads don't sound out of place. Like I complained about that with Amaranthe's Helix, that a couple of songs really slowed down the pace in an unfortunate way. That does not happen at all with Vega's opening act, which is, again, the album Only Human. The title track is also very good, or is also, you know, like really enjoyable. And the lyrics got a little something to it, too. Like the lyrics are, you know, have some meat. As to where with a lot of times when you get bands, there's like bands like was it Hard Action or Crazy Licks and some of these other ones that are copying that 80s sound, but their lyrics don't have a whole lot going for them. I mean, which, whatever, you know, I'm not saying lyrics have to have something going for them. Like Motley Crue, their lyrics never had much of anything going for them, but that doesn't matter. It was all about the attitude, you know? So I get it. There can be something to the attitude, but you do notice when the lyrics are actually telling you something or actually giving you something. And I feel like with Vega, you actually get that. This is probably, if I were to say what's the best new band of 2018, I'd probably hand it over to Vega. Not that there was a whole ton of new bands in 2018, but Vega was, you know, had an initial outing with Only Human, and I think it's brilliant. So you really, this is one that I missed, that I didn't notice when it first came out. So you want to hit that up. But Vega, Only Human, brilliant new album as far as that goes. So let's move on to another one here. So here's a band from Norway. They've been around for a little while. I think this is either their third or fourth album. And this is more of a power metal act, and, you know, where their music is some kind of fantastical events or something, but it's Guardians of Time, and a really, really solid band. And just to give you a taste of, you know, like what where this power metal band is going, first track, Tearing Up the World, badass track. Next song is Raise the Eagle. Next song is Will Bring War. Song after that is Burning of Rome. Song after that's Kingdom Come, then Valhalla Waits. You get where they're going with this. Okay. They're really playing into that whole, like, either Rome or Viking, or, you know, that more fantastical and historical aspects that a lot of power metal bands will get into. A lot of times those kind of bands will, you know, a lot of people kind of consider them a joke or something. Sometimes they're being very serious in how they write about this stuff. I don't know why we don't take that sort of thing seriously anymore, because Judas Priest and like Iron Maiden, they'd write about those kind of subjects, historical subjects, all the time, and everybody took their shit as serious as a heart attack, and they didn't consider it a joke. So I don't know why it's seen as a joke now, other than, I mean, I think humanity now in general is a joke, and certainly like Americans and their complete lack of taste is a pretty bad joke. I mean, that's why a lot of these bands, again, they'll only release their albums in Europe, and it's a shame because we're missing out on, you know, Americans in general. Not that they really go to the music store anymore, and maybe they're on Spotify, I don't know, but, you know, otherwise you're missing out on some of the best shit in the world and some of the best stuff ever done. I'm not saying Guardians of Time are one of the best bands ever. They're not even close, but they do have, I mean, it's a really solid outing if you need more power metal in your life, and who the fuck doesn't? Or at least, well, I know I do. So Guardians of Time, Tearing Up the World, that's a new release for 2018. Really, really solid. You know, if you're into that kind of power metal, and based on the title tracks, you know what you're getting. So let's go to another album. In fact, in this case, let's go to one that is really a re-release, kind of like the aforementioned Injustice for All from Metallica. This is the re-release of one of my favorite bands. Actually, pretty much the first concert, I'll say, or metal concert that I went to. They were one of the acts at the first concert I went to. And I was a very, very young person, but it's Anthrax, who has continued. In fact, right now, Anthrax, or in the past 5 years or so, or even more, have really done, in the past decade, let's say, they have really done some of the best work they've ever done. Like, I think their album Worship Music, when they brought back Joey Belladonna, was that might even be their best album. I mean, or just shy. It's that fantastic. You know, I mean, there's a lot, like the albums they've been, For All Kings, you know, that they've been putting out in recent years are incredible. And it's amazing for a band that's been around as long as they have, since the 80s, to really be putting out some of their best music now, if not their best. Some people want to claim that it's actually their best. So anyway, but this is a re-release, and it's a 30th anniversary re-release of State of Euphoria, which originally came out in 1988. Of course, it's 2018. That's 30 years. You get it. And this is an album that at the time when it came out in 88, not the biggest deal. Like, critically, people weren't the biggest fans of it, even though it has, honestly, in my opinion, some of their biggest songs. Antisocial, Finale, Be All, End All. I mean, just, total Anthrax classics. And the 30th anniversary edition re-release, I mean, it's a remastering and it sounds good. There's some bonus tracks in there. I mean, I don't know how necessarily essential it is, but one of the things I like about these remasters and re-releases more than anything, sometimes you'll get a little bonus track. Sometimes. Not always. Like, I remember when Judas Priest did, actually, this was in the early aughts, when they did a complete re-release of their entire catalog. Pretty much once Tim Ripper Owens was effectively kicked out of the band. Some of the albums, they would actually re-release songs from that era, like new songs from that era. And that's what's really special, is when you get, new songs from the time of that band when they were making, the actual album that is getting re-released. But you don't always get that. But regardless of that, that's really the only validity of what I would actually want a re-release for. Unless you're doing kind of like Destroyer Resurrected that Kiss did a few years ago, where actually 2 years ago, where like they really went in and like so deeply retinkered the sound to where, you're literally hearing it all over again. But most remasters aren't even at that level. But the point I'm getting at is the thing I do like about remasters is that, if anything, it puts the CD or the album, download, whatever, however you get it, it puts it back at the on the front shelf, and it gives people a chance, like it reintroduces them perhaps, or gives you the opportunity to listen to it again. And that's really what State of Euphoria, the remaster, did for me, is that it gave me the opportunity to just listen to what I think is a brilliant album. I mean, and its follow-up is great too, Persistence of Time, but to listen to State of Euphoria again was really, really enjoyable. So if it's been a while since you've dusted off an Anthrax album, I think this is a good place to start. And the remastering's fine. Like, I mean, it definitely has a good, cleaner, harder sound. But at the same time, like, it didn't necessarily need it, and it's not to the level of, say, like I said, Destroyer Resurrected, which really, Kiss's Destroyer Resurrected from 2016, if you want to know what a remaster should sound like, that's the template, okay, of what a remaster should be. And it's very rare that we ever get anything remotely, and I mean fucking remotely, like that. Very, very rare that we do. So anyway, so there's that. Now, how about a couple new albums by bands that have been around maybe a little past Anthrax, maybe more of your aughts or even like later, I guess we'll say aughts metal bands. Well, the first one we got is from a band that I am a big fan of, and that is Disturbed. Disturbed, they had their new album. This is one of the October 19th albums, that being Evolution. It is their 7th studio album. And the opening song, Are You Ready? The nice thing about Disturbed, I said earlier about like bands where their lyrics actually say something. Disturbed is one of those bands where I feel like their lyrics really say something, especially if you're not listening to the radio edits of their songs. Now, Disturbed has a very specific sound, that they don't veer much from. And they're also well known for a lot of their covers, right? Land of Confusion, and of course, The Sound of Silence. I mean, that became a huge song, even though you wouldn't believe that could be redone by a metal band, and it was brilliant. But yeah, Disturbed they never veer much from, what their fans expect. And that's okay. I mean, if they ever really do want to like do a disco album, fine. But you know what you're getting with Disturbed. There's not a whole lot of point talking about it. I did like the opening track, Are You Ready? A Reason to Fight is another really solid song on there. I don't know. It's tough to say. Like, Disturbed, for me, I'm a fan of them, but Disturbed, for me, usually most of their albums, you get 2 or 3 great songs. and someday they'll release like a greatest hits. And if they put at least 2 songs a pop from each of their albums, that's going to be like, that greatest hits album is never going to, if people still did CD players, that CD would never leave the players. I mean, that's the kind of band that they are. I think a lot of people think of Bon Jovi that way. I disagree. I think Bon Jovi, like almost all of their albums, are track for track. Like there are way better songs than that they have that never get played on the radio, which is sad. But regardless, Disturbed, I mean, that's how they roll. So anyway, there's a couple tracks on there certainly to check out. The whole album, it has that Disturbed sound, and you can kind of go forward with it. Now, the next band is one that I think might shock some people that I listen to, and I don't just listen to, like that I'm a huge fan of. I mean, I'm a big, big fan, and that is Saliva. Of course, everybody remembers Saliva for Click, Click, Boom. Which, whatever, fuck that song. But I mean, I think they have some really, I feel over the years they've had some really, really great songs and some really enjoyable albums. Josie Scott, I think, is actually like a very unique vocalist in what he delivers. Of course, Josie Scott hasn't been with the band for, 6 years now. Like they've had, what's his name there? Bobby Amaru has been the lead singer for a while. And I think that recently the drummer who had been with them Paul Crosby, who had been with them forever for like 20 years, he's gone. And yeah, I hate saying that Saliva's been around that long. But their first album came out in 97. But yeah, and that wasn't even their big one. Every 6 Seconds was their big album. But anyway, so Saliva came out with a new album that is 10 Lives, and I like it. I mean, I think compared to a couple of their more recent outings, like Rise Up and Love, Lies, and Therapy, which I think I actually reviewed Rise Up might have been on a Q&A, or on some Sovereign Tech episode somewhere. But anyway, I think I like this better than that. Opening song with Domination, Only the Strong Survive, Some Shit About Love. I mean, the first 4 or 5 songs are really, I'm noticing this, that a lot of metal acts right now are doing, usually you interspersed, you do 10, 11 songs, or, back in the 90s you had to do 20, but you do 10, 11 songs, and normally you would, you'd break it up a little bit. You'd put your hits like every couple songs. Now it seems like most bands are front-loading their albums with like 6 really bad, 4 to 6 really badass songs, and then the rest of the album can kind of taper off. That does happen with 10 Lives, but overall an enjoyable album. Definitely one of the better ones that Saliva has done, honestly, in the past, I'll say, decade. Because what did they do? Was that Cinco Diablo that they did back in 2008? That was a very interesting album. But anyway, so Saliva, that's another one that came out on October 19th. I'm telling you, like the amount of albums, fucking crazy. There was the Marty Friedman album, One Bad Motherfucker Live. That if you know Marty Friedman, of course, who of Megadeth fame, if you know Marty Friedman, you're already listening to it and you already grabbed that album and you're already rocking it. That's one that came out on October 19th. I don't need to talk about that much. Marty Friedman, just one of the greatest guitar players of all time. Does not get anywhere near the amount of credit that he really does deserve. And shame to have Megadeth kind of without him as late, but there it is. So anyway, let's get into. Well, I mentioned Kiss earlier. Let's talk about one of the original Kiss members, that being Ace Frehley, with his album that also came out on October 19th, that being Spaceman. Ace has had he had Anomaly, he had a few different albums. In fact, he's been more prolific in the past, I'd say 6-7 years than he had been through most of his career. And the albums are, it's Ace. Like, none of it is really matching, the 79 solo, right? When he came out, when each Kiss member did their solo album, like Ace and Paul's albums were easily, like, they just took top spot, especially Paul Stanley's solo album that he did back in 79 was just fucking amazing. But certainly Ace did a great job with his solo album. He really, really did back in 79. Not much in his very prolific past decade has come anything close to matching that, or even back when he was doing Frehley's Comet, which that had some like Rock Soldiers, some really solid songs from back then. but it's not bad. It's fun. It's fun music, and you know how Ace sings, which most people didn't expect Ace to do so well as far as singing, but then you get into 2000 Man and so on, back when he was with Kiss, and you go, holy shit, wow, this guy actually has this very unique voice. You can hear his age, and I don't know if anyone's really helping him write all this stuff, but I mean, he's putting it down, he's putting it out there, and it's really cool just to buy a new Ace Frehley album, quite frankly. So none of the songs really stand out for me, but if you like Ace's sound, you know how it goes, and it sounds like that. So, but it's not bad, it's not great, but it's also nowhere near remotely bad, as to where there are genuine stinkers that come out, by modern bands, or not by modern bands, but by modern bands and by bands that have been around for a good long while. Where a new album will come out, and you just go, oh, wait, what the fuck was that? But with Ace, you don't do that. You're just like, yeah, that's Ace, and it's there, and it's good. So anyway, let's get on to another album here. And this one is from, a guy that I am just a huge fan of wherever he lands. And he's very much one of those, he almost feels like one of those singers for hire, but he's just a huge deal. You don't know it, you wouldn't know it in America, but like in Russia, deal with it, folks. You do realize Russians are human beings, right? In Russia, this guy's massive. I mean, he's a god over there. I think he's a fucking god, and I'm over here. But we're talking about Joe Lynn Turner. Joe Lynn Turner would be best known, of course, for his time in the band Rainbow, with Richie Blackmore and so on. That just tells you how long he's been around. Of course, he would also do incredible work and some of the best work with Yngwie Malmsteen. Really, the song Paradise, This Could Be Paradise, fuck yes. Or This Feels Like Paradise. And let's see. He did actually my favorite Deep Purple album. He was on that, Slaves and Masters, from, I guess it was 93 when that came out. And this guy's all over the place. Joe Lynn Turner, he pops up wherever, and he just has one of those golden voices. And the guy is still, alive and kicking. Really. And a few years ago, over a decade ago, back in 2006, I think was when their first album came out, he started a little hard rock project called Sunstorm. First couple albums, the production values weren't exactly there, but I don't know if some record company somewhere, maybe in Russia, started to take it seriously and gave them like a real producer and studio or whatever. I'm not knocking their first couple albums. I think Sunstorm stuff is largely great. But they definitely got significantly better over time. In fact, their last album, which came out in 2016, Edge of Tomorrow, I thought was brilliant and actually charted, honestly. And their newest album, Road to Hell, is another, maybe their best one so far. I really, really dug it. It opens right up with Only the Good Will Survive, then the title track, Road to Hell, then On the Edge. This is another one where it feels like bands are really front-loading the album with like 4 or 5 great songs. And, then it kind of peters out a little bit. But Joe Lynn Turner's voice is just so classic. You can't help but listen to the whole damn thing. So I've listened to this album probably 3-4 times over now. Of course, I am such a huge fan of Joe Lynn Turner, especially. Joe Lynn Turner's a big deal in Russia because he was in Deep Purple. Now for me, as I've said many times, whenever I talk about heavy metal, there's a saying in heavy metal that, it says a lot about who you are depending upon which of the metal gods you worship more. Meaning, are you a bigger fan of Zeppelin, Sabbath, or Purple? Which one? One of the three. Now, I'm a Purple guy. I'm totally a Deep Purple guy all the way. Perfect Strangers. You go down the list of the albums. To say nothing of, back when David Coverdale was running things, and so on, or, Ian Gillan, whatever. But fuck, I love Purple. Even their last album that they did was fantastic. And they're hanging up their hats, unfortunately. I would love to see them one last time. They're doing a pretty big tour in Mexico right now. But anyway, they're not with Joe Lynn Turner. But I'll tell you, Joe Lynn Turner's album with Purple, I thought was fucking amazing. Slaves and Masters is a classic, an absolute classic. So if you want to listen to that and then, listen to some modern Sunstorm, hey, you could do worse as far as music goes. So really, really enjoying Road to Hell. I think that just maybe Sunstorm's best album to date. So let's go on to another album, or another, not a newer band. They've been around for a while, but this is another one that came out, another one of those October 19th releases, and that is Visions of Atlantis. Now, this is one of your power metal bands that deals more in the fantasy realm, but they had a new album, The Deep and the Dark, that came out, and for Visions of Atlantis, track for track. You can listen to the whole thing and just have a great time listening to it. It's that style of power metal. You know what you're getting when a band is called Visions of Atlantis, and it works. Like I really think it works, and not their best, not necessarily the best stuff I've heard from them, but I listened to the album straight through in a workout, and I had a great time, and it certainly got me through Arms Day, and that's what matters. So. Visions of Atlantis, their new one, The Deep and the Dark, totally worthwhile. Sirenia, here's another one. I want to try and wrap this up, but again, this just goes to show you how much shit came out. Sirenia, which, just talk about her golden voice. What a great band that has been around also for a while. They just came out with a new album, Arcane, Astral, Aeons. Another brilliant release, and with Sirenia, you get a little bit of everything. You get a little clean, you get a little guttural vocals and so on, and their lead singer, she's brilliant, what she pulls off. So, if you're a fan of Sirenia, the score, you definitely want to check that out. There's other albums, I think I might just end it there. There was the new Whitesnake box set, Unzipped, which is like a lot of acoustic stuff that they've done over the years, a lot of live material, and some performances of bigger hits, but done with acoustic, with an acoustic set. Well worthwhile. It's like 3 or 4 discs. I listened to the whole thing straight through. Anytime Whitesnake comes out with something, I am all over it. I loved the Purple album that they did. That was totally worthwhile. Where with David Coverdale's Modern Band, which is a brilliant set, he covered a lot of his stuff back from the Deep Purple days. And what's amazing is that, sure, he used the Modern Band, but like those songs still sound so fresh and so badass and, so much attitude. So if you didn't, I know I covered the Purple album when it came out, because I'll talk about Whitesnake, all day long. I'll literally talk about Whitesnake all day long, if someone let me. But Unzipped, you want to check out that box set. You got to be a fan of Whitesnake, I think, to appreciate what's there and to really enjoy hearing a lot of these songs in a different light, but very worthwhile, if you're a fan of them. And some of it comes off surprisingly a bit sexier than I expected, as to where you think Slow and Easy is already, this incredibly sexy song. Well, it can get a little sexier, but you got to listen to Unzipped to find out about that. Boy, is there any, let me look. Dee Snider's new album, yeah, Twisted Sister, but his new album, For the Love of Metal, good stuff. He didn't write a single song on it, though. So and the songs are all really short, too. But I enjoyed that. I think it's worth mentioning. It's worth putting out there. But yeah, For the Love of Metal. He actually, the guy that did it for him, I keep forgetting his name, but he's the lead singer for Hatebreed, of all things, who the guy just has tremendous fucking taste. And he worked with Dee Snider on this, and Dee, went into the studio, did his singing, away he goes, and bammo. What a story, Dee Snider. Man, if you're and make sure you stay up to date on the story, because there was a time where Dee Snider was broke as fuck. In the 90s, it was over. And now, he has no problem admitting it. He's a wealthy as fuck rock star, and he doesn't even have to make music anymore if he doesn't want to. He can just do little projects like this, like For the Love of Metal. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really, it was really cool. I think part of what's keeping me from thinking it's really great is I don't like the fact that Dee didn't write it. And it's weird because Dee Snider, so he wrote everything for Twisted Sister, which I love. I think those albums are great. Not that Twisted Sister has a long catalog, but what's in the catalog I think is really just very raunchy, powerful, and has just a awesome attitude. Amazingly, Dee Snider doesn't really play instruments. He comes up with songs. If you think if you think Twisted Sister's music is really simplistic, well, here might be the key why. So Dee Snider, how he writes music is he just kind of hums it. And then he has, French and the rest of the boys play it. All right, the drum's going to go da 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 da. The guitar is going to go, and that's literally how he writes the music. And he writes all the music. I think that's mind-blowing to me that music can be written that way. I mean, granted, you have to have talented musicians around you, and certainly the boys in Twisted Sister, pretty damn good, to be able to pull that off. But that's how he rolls, And, I mean, D. Snider's he has done solo work, solo albums where he's written the music. And it's not bad stuff at all. I mean, it's classic D, but, it's not bad stuff at all. I don't know. I think there's a part, I'm amazed at how D. Snider even writes music, but I think there's a part of me that just mentally can't get over the fact that D is just performing on this and that he didn't write any of it. And it's kind of weird. So I don't know, but it was fun to listen to. I genuinely had a good time checking it out. So some bands that I'm not going to get into their albums, but I'm just going to mention that they're still coming out with music. Some of them still came out with music this year, and I want you to give them a look. And some of them are newer bands really that have come out in the past couple of years. One of them is Mob Rules. They've been around for a while. They've been around for 20 years, 25 years maybe. They're still coming out with great music. You want to check out Mob Rules. Another one is Metallite. Metallite has this amazing female lead singer. You want to be listening to Metallite. Another one is Graveshadow. Graveshadow actually is fronted by the lead singer, who she was the original lead singer for Helion Prime, who I consider to be one of the better newer bands in recent memory. And so, you want to check out Graveshadow. It's really epic kind of power metal stuff, but totally worthwhile. Now, if you did not hear some album that came out in 2018 yet for Album of the Week, like maybe you're looking for my review of the new Coheed and Cambria album, that is stuff that I'm saving for future albums of the week. But I just had to knock out some of these albums. I don't know, we went through maybe 10 or something. We had to knock out some of them, okay? Otherwise, they would have just taken up a ton of time. And I'm sure there's more that I could have covered right now, but I wanted to knock these out so I had room to talk about other albums that maybe deserve a little more exploration in your Wednesday Q&As, when at the end of it we do the album of the week. So anyway, a lot of metal for you to go listen to, folks. And go hit it up. Hell, there's a new TNT album. If you never heard those German boys, man, can they rock it? I talk about someone that's been around for 30 years. TNT, I think it's called 13 because it's probably their 13th album. Brilliant piece of metal. You really go listen to that. They're one of those bands. TNT is one of those bands. They had a few hits back in the 80s, one or two. And then they kind of get forgotten, even though they've consistently come out with new albums. Just consistently. Another band that's like TNT for me, that's actually, if I did a top 10 bands, there's a good chance they'd be in that top 10. House of Lords. House of Lords is such a fantastic fucking band, but most people don't know them past their maybe first 3 albums if we're lucky. Maybe they know their first 2. Or maybe they just know their first album. But House of Lords is still coming out with amazing fucking... they come out with albums every couple of years, and they've been doing this since 1988 or 89 or even earlier. And fuck, it's sad. People forget that these bands are still coming out with stuff. But yeah, that new TNT album, you can check that out. It's fun. And if you haven't been checking out House of Lords' latest shit, you got to be listening to that. So anyway, I think that'll wrap it up for there's probably a bunch of stuff that came out in 2017 that I didn't get to cover, like the last was it Unruly Child? They had an album come out in 2017 that was fucking brilliant. Or Annette Olson was with the Dark Element. She's fronting a new band after she left Nightwish. It was called The Dark Element. And I think the album's called The Dark Element as well. That was brilliant. So, there's a lot out there to really sink your teeth into. So, and it took me all of 50 minutes to talk about some of it. So anyway, we'll wrap this up. And I think, is this Patreon episode 299? That means Patreon episode 300 is coming up also. I don't think I talked about this at the beginning of the show. Episode 300 of Sovereign Tech Prime will be coming out, but it's going to come out when it's done. Okay, it's going to come out when it's done. That's how I'm going to put it to you, because I want to make sure that this is done right. And sometimes it takes a little while. But once episode 300 is out, we'll be back to our usual, every Saturday, or maybe I'll switch the day to Sunday, which I've hinted at recently. But every week, like on a very specific day, 99% of the time, you're going to get it on that day. So anyway, all right, that's it really for this little, again, total bonus episode. You Need Metal Supplemental. How about that? It's like a captain's log, but it's supplemental. And get lifting, get driving, put on that metal while you do it. Chase that greatness, make it happen, be happy. I'll see you on the other side. Woo.